Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the weekly Thursday Night Football Breakdown. My name is Max Loeb, Loeb's Leads, and I use analytics and data to help you win your fantasy leagues as well as make educated sports bets. So if you're new, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you leave a like on this video if you enjoy this type of content. But without further ado, let's talk about this Houston Texans, New York Jets Thursday Night Football game. What we're going to do to start is talk about the coverage matrix. If you don't know what this is, it essentially breaks down how often and how much each team plays different coverages, right? So let's start with the New York Jets. And I think if anybody watches the New York Jets, they know they're a pretty man-heavy team. So when you go look at the man percentages, and we will go entire season, not just the last 3 weeks, the New York Jets, as soon as this loads, you can see, are in the top 10. They're actually 6th in the NFL in man coverage percentage at 37.3%. That's a lot. It's a lot of third downs. The Jets are pretty good at getting opposing offenses into third downs, but there's a lot of man coverage when they get into those situations. It's very important to know because when we look at the Texans pass catchers, especially now, no Nico Collins for a couple more weeks, no Stephon Diggs for the rest of the year. Who is really good against man? Not only does CJ Stroud look at against man, but who is really good against man? The yards per route run, the targets per route run, the overall yards, the overall catches. That is what we're going to look at as soon as we finish up this coverage matrix. So we can continue to look at the New York Jets in terms of zone percentage. They're 6th in the NFL in overall man percentage. And then when it comes to zone, they're the 6th lowest. Let's look at the Houston Texans because they do a lot of really good things defensively. They're kind of all over the place, which makes it really, really hard to predict the outcomes for Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson, even guys like Breece Hall, Tyler Conklin, Allen Lazard. We have to look at the target percentages in terms of alignment for that, but we can break down the Texans a little bit by looking at what they do overall. They're a little bit more man-heavy. That's the only thing here, right? They're 17th in the NFL, 28.2% in overall man coverage. And then when you look at zone coverage, they are, just had them, where'd they go? 14th in the NFL. So overall, a little more zone heavy. But when you look at the last 5 weeks, this is what I want us to write home about. The last 5 weeks for the Houston Texans, right? Last 5 weeks, they've been running more man than we've experienced or we've been expecting from that Texans defense, right? You look at the man percentages, Houston Texans 12th in the NFL at 30.5%. See, that's what does it for me. You look at the Houston Texans overall pass defense and you think, okay, they're pretty solid. They give up a lot of targets out wide. We'll talk about that in a minute here, but they're pretty solid. They're all over the place with the coverages that they run, but a little more zone heavy overall than man heavy. But recently, maybe it's because of the teams they've been playing. Maybe it's because they feel more comfortable with their corners as of late. Last 5 games, a lot more man coverage. So when you look at the Jets, I don't think the Texans feel comfortable enough to consistently line up and play man against Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams. I think that's a death sentence, to be honest with you, especially if it leads to Breece Hall going one-on-one with a linebacker. If the Jets can hold up in protection, I think they're going to be a little more zone heavy. But because there's no significant tell in terms of man coverage versus zone coverage for this Houston Texans defense, we have to look at the target percentages, where they are being targeted all year, but especially last 5 games, and make our educated guesses on start sits and projections on there. So let's continue to look at the target rate when it comes to the Houston Texans offense now. So we just talked about it. The New York Jets are a little bit more man-heavy than zone-heavy, the 6th highest man coverage team in the NFL. So what we have to do now is go look at the Houston Texans and see who is the best against man coverage. Now you can see pretty clearly right here, right? Nico Collins, number 1 overall in yards per route run in man coverage. That's 3.75 yards per route run. Look who's second, though. If you guys can't see it, zoom in a little bit. It's Joe Mixon. That fascinates me because I looked at the overall routes run. Joe Mixon and Dare Ogunbowale are pretty much even. But as Joe Mixon has come back from his injury, I'm going to read you the snap counts, how they've been increasing for Mixon and decreasing for Ogunbowale. So Mixon missed 3 games. The 3 games that Ogunbowale played where Mixon was out, he had as many snaps as Cam Akers, 1 less snap than Cam Akers, and then over double the amount of snaps as Cam Akers. So Ogunbowale continued to improve. When Mixon came back, immediately first week back off the injury, played 10 more snaps than Ogunbowale, 42% of snaps overall. Next week, 66%. Last week, 76% of snaps against the Indianapolis Colts, and Dare Ogunbowale only logged 13. So when you look at overall routes run, it's very understandable why they are around each other. Mixon missed 3 games, even in that other game back. He didn't play a full workload. Now he's back to 65 plus, 75 plus % of snaps. He is still going to be the main beneficiary in the pass game. So when I look at Joe Mixon, 2.63 yards per route run against man coverage. The Jets are probably going to play a little more man coverage. They don't really go away from what they're good at. And then, oddly enough, when you look at this New York Jets run defense, overall, they're not great. They're really not great. A little over 100 yards per game allowed to opposing running backs. That's 10th in the NFL, 10th most in the NFL. I think Joe Mixon is going to have to be the focal point here. So when I look at overall scrimmage yards for Mixon, I looked this morning, it was at 108.5, something around there in terms of your projections, higher lowers, which I will explain where you guys can get your projections at the very end of this video. That to me is just a little too low. Like, I think Mixon can overperform there. I think Mixon can run the ball effectively, and I don't think the Jets are going to blow the Texans out. I think the Texans defense is good enough to keep them in this game, as much as I think the Jets are a better team than the Houston Texans are right now. I know that's a crazy, crazy thing to say. Walking into this game, C.J. Stroud without Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, on paper, I think the Jets are better. And I think it's going to be a very close game. I know they opened up as 1-point favorites. We'll talk about that at the end as well. I think it's going to be a close game. I don't think they're going to have to abandon the run. And in past situations, Mixon is still going to be the main beneficiary. But you continue to look at the other route runners and yards per route run. Like, Mixon has enough targets where you can think, okay, he's probably going to get a few this game. That's 19 targets over 5 games. It's 4 or 5 a game. That's pretty good. Then you look at Cade Stover, 9 targets in 8 games. That's 1 a game. J.J. Taylor, 3 targets in 2 games. That's 1 a game. And then again, Ogunbowale. So it's very clear. Throwing to running backs against man is something the Texans do, whether it's screens, whether it's design one-on-ones. They like to throw to running backs. But who's 6th? Tank Dell. Now, I hesitate to really lean too much into Tank Dell because I think there's going to be a lot of attention from this New York Jets team on him, especially in the pass game. They're not a defense that likes to double team a ton. They trust Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed, but I don't know how much they trust to slide them inside. So I think if Tank Dell slides inside, his yards, which was at 56.5 this morning, I believe, yeah, sounds right, is solid. And again, I think CJ Stroud just has to throw the ball somewhere. That's the reality. But when I hear that, I look at Xavier Hutchinson because his projection is 19 yards, 2 catches. To me, I would feel safer throwing a little bit on Xavier Hutchinson, probably 2 catches rather than 19 yards, but 2 catches because, again, I think CJ Stroud has to throw the ball somewhere. How confident am I that it's Tank Dell? I don't know, to be honest with you, because I think if you're the Jets, you're Sauce Gardner, you're DJ Reed, that's the guy you got to worry about. You can find ways to stop him. You know you're going to win the game. I think they can. So overall, Texans pass catchers, to me, Hutchinson 2 catches, and then I'm going Mixon. You can go Mixon receiving yards if you want, but I think it's a little safer because he has hit scrimmage yards, and I believe every game but 1 he's played, and then receiving yards, it's every game but 2. So I like him against a run defense that's not as good as we've given them credit for. I like Joe Mixon scrimmage yards. I like Xavier Hutchinson receiving yards. And again, we can go look at the Jets man zone splits. We don't know what the Texans are going to do, but it is interesting to note where the Texans are being targeted. Like I talked about maybe 3-4 minutes ago, the Houston Texans, as wild as it sounds, the Houston Texans are allowing the highest outside target rate in the entire NFL. I'm going to pull this up for you in just a second here. The highest outside target rate in the entire NFL, which to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense because of the corners that they have, right? It doesn't make a ton of sense. Hold on one second here. I'll pull this up for you guys. All right, there we go. It doesn't make a ton of sense because of the corners that they have, but maybe it's the way the defense is built. Maybe it's because they are so good inside. It doesn't make a ton of sense, but you look at it up there. Almost 50% of opposing targets are going out wide against the Houston Texans. So you look at the routes out wide for the New York Jets. This is very important. The New York Jets with Davante Adams. It's only been 2 games, so the sample size is kind of small, which stinks. But you look at the 2 games with Davante Adams, and I think it's really going to surprise you what you see. The leading outside route runner, and again, you could think of this in different ways, whether it's because he's playing more snaps, Davante Adams is just getting used to the offense, whatever. The leading out wide route runner is still Garrett Wilson. It's still Garrett Wilson. He leads Davante Adams by 2 routes on the outside overall. And then when you look at their overall snap counts, Garrett Wilson, Davante Adams, they're virtually playing every snap. So it's not like Garrett Wilson was playing a ton more the first week Davante Adams was on the field. That's not the case. But the other aspect of this is the slot route percentage. Because you look at the overall slot routes, Davante Adams has the most slot routes in the NFL. Or sorry, on the Jets the last 2 weeks, not in the NFL. Most slot routes on the Jets the past 2 weeks. But I want everybody to remember who did not play last game. Does everybody remember who did not play last game? It was Allen Lazard. Allen Lazard did not play last game. Now, if you know anything about me, you know how much I love when the Jets put Allen Lazard in the slot. He's been their slot guy, as weird as it is. More of Davante Adams' routes from the slot came with Allen Lazard. So it's almost like they are pushing Lazard out wide and leading Adams into the slot, which to me doesn't make a lot of sense. It really doesn't. Maybe Aaron Rodgers is more comfortable throwing to Davante Adams inside. But you look at his split. Week 8 routes for Davante Adams. Let me share this screen with you guys too. Share screen. You look at his split. There we go. Week 8 for Davante Adams. 11 slot routes, 17 wide routes. And that was without Allen Lazard, right? That was without Allen Lazard. Hold on one second here. Without Allen Lazard playing. Now, Allen Lazard did not practice yesterday. So, seems like Allen Lazard is not playing. That, at least to me, it seems like he's not playing. So, you look at the sample size from when Lazard did not play. It was Adams out wide, and Garrett Wilson was out wide too. But Adams more out wide than in the slot. And then, you just look at week 7, that game against the Steelers. Davante Adams, out wide routes with Allen Lazard in the lineup, right? Lazard played this game. 19-17. So much more balanced. So the percentage of Davante Adams' routes out wide increases with Allen Lazard out. Now, I am recording this at 3:30 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday, October 30th, almost 28 hours before kickoff. I don't think Allen Lazard's going to play. If that's the case, Davante Adams is the out wide guy, or more out wide than in the slot, right? What did we just talk about with the Houston Texans defense? 47% of the opposing team targets go out wide. What did we talk about at the very beginning of the video? The Houston Texans, I think, at least in my opinion, probably don't feel like they can go one-on-one with Garrett Wilson, Davante Adams consistently. For me, any game can be a Garrett Wilson game. Absolutely can be. But I think this is a Davante Adams game. I think because of the snap differential, because they're going to put him out wide a little more, run a little more 12P, especially against the Texans defense that hasn't seen a ton of that this year, Adams will be out wide. He'll be a true out wide guy more, at least, than he has been with Lazard in the lineup. Now, if Lazard plays, this changes things. I don't think he's going to play, though. DNP yesterday, I don't think Lazard plays, and I think you look at the correlation for those routes, and it's Davante Adams. And it's Davante Adams over Garrett Wilson in terms of projection and confidence in projections. Now, just looking at the projections right now, I'll pull it up right now. If you guys want to ride any of these, as always, you can do it on Sleeper. They will match your first deposit 200%, so you can put $10 down. They'll give you 20 to play with. And if you haven't joined before, they will give you a free projection of Aaron Rodgers throwing for at least 1 yard. You can put that with any of your other picks, and you ride it. You get one free correct pick, and you can triple if you hit. Now, click the link in my bio, click the link below. That's how you get on it. Use code LEADS, LEADS. But looking at the projection, Garrett Wilson projected 61.5 yards, right? Davante Adams projected 61.5 yards. They're on the exact same trajectory, but Davante Adams projected one last catch. So to me, especially if you're going to see soft zone, catches is the way to lean over yards anyways, right? Soft zone, zone-heavy team, catches is the way to go. Davante Adams' 5 catches to me is a little bit too low. His 2 games, he's had 3 and 4, and, I get it. There's a lot of mouths to feed in this offense. Back against the wall, home game, to me, this is an Adams game, especially with what they're playing, especially the zone that they're playing. And again, you look at the last couple weeks, man-zone splits. The New England Patriots, 6th in the NFL overall, last 5 in man coverage. Pittsburgh Steelers, little bit lower, but that was Devontae Adams' first game as a New York Jet. Let's look at week 7 of that game. Week 7, Steelers versus Jets. What do you know? Pittsburgh Steelers, 11th most man coverage in the NFL that week. When you look at last week, the New England Patriots against the Jets. New England Patriots, 5th most man coverage last week. Now, Houston's playing a lot of man. They are. They played 46% last week. Last 3 weeks, they've been playing much more man than you'd think. But what they've really done, I'm going to share this really, really quickly. This will be the last point, and then we'll get off here. What the Texans have done very, very oddly, not oddly, it makes sense, is almost alternate what they put on film. So last week, week 8, they ran 46% man coverage. The week before that, they did not show any man. They played 6% man coverage. You see at the bottom? 6%. 6% of their coverage was man. Let's look at the week before, though. Houston Texans, week 6. They didn't have a bye this week, right? No, I don't think so. Houston Texans, week 6. Maybe they did have a bye. Maybe I'm tweaking. Hold on, stand by. 16th in man coverage. The week before that, they're middle of the pack, right? Week before that, week 5. Texans, 12th in man coverage. So what they're going to do is they're going to show you man, and they're going to play less man. Then they're going to show you man, then they're going to play less man. They showed you a lot of man last game against the Indianapolis Colts. If you follow the trends, they're going to play less man this week. All signs to me point to Devontae Adams in that sense, especially when you look at the yards per out run against zone. I think Devontae Adams, 5 catches is where we lean with the Jets. I also probably going to lean on the Jets kicker. We don't know who it is. It was Riley Patterson and somebody else who got signed today. But Jets kicker, 2 field goals. Devontae Adams, 5 catches. And then you look at the Houston Texans, mixed and scrimmage yards. Xavier Hutchinson, 2 receptions. Those are the 4 we're riding, at least as of right now. Make sure you guys follow the socials or check out the socials if anything changes, but I don't think anything will. I appreciate you guys hopping on. Appreciate you guys checking out the newest episode of our Thursday Night Football Breakdown. God bless you guys, and I will see you next time. Thank you.